Hey guys, Julian here, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make ambient synths like Olafur Arnalds and Nils Frahm. So, as usual, you get the project file and the samples from this video in the description, and if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because they will be available shortly. And yeah, let's get started. So, this is a loop you heard in the intro. We're at 127 BPM, and the first sound we have here is this little noise, which sounds like this. And so, what this is this meant to be kind of like, not like background noise necessarily, but it's meant to be kind of like a more lively sort of noise. Like, you know, a lot of times you'll put like a vinyl noise or like some street noise or something like that in the background, but you can hear this. It's created with a synth, but it has a little bit more life to it because the filter's moving around. It has like this kind of eighth note pattern where it's like and this is something I noticed Olafur Arnalds and Nils Frahm do a lot as well. Like on their album Trance Friends, they have a ton of these little like noise pad things. So then for the sound on this one, this was made using Operator, and basically what we have here is, you can see it's just some white noise, pretty standard stuff there. That's just going into a bandpass filter, and then the bandpass filter is set here, and then it's got a little bit of an envelope on it. So that's how you hear that like the clicking at the start. That's what's doing that. The only other thing to note there is I also have the LFO on here, and you can see I have that not on the retrigger mode, meaning basically it's just constantly moving. And what it's doing is it's moving the filter. So it's not doing it a whole lot, but you can hear how this is kind of like changing in timbre. If I turn this off, it just kind of stays in the same place. So yeah, that just gives it some more movement. You can even do that a bit slower probably. But then after that, we have this auto pan, and what I'm doing with this is I'm sort of like giving it a more choppy sort of sound. So here's without the auto pan. You can hear it's just really straight and clean, but when we add this, it becomes a lot choppier and weirder. So basically what's happening here is we have the auto pan, I have the width on, okay, so we have the width on 0, so it's only affecting the volume. And then what's happening is I have the noise waveform, and I have it at a really fast rate. So if I turn this down, you can hear that's basically what it's doing, and then I just don't have the amount up very high, and then I have a really fast rate. So yeah, you can hear that's what that's doing. And so with this thing, I'm just using it, again, to make it like a little bit more choppy, a little bit more textured. After that, the last thing we have on here is just a bit of chorus, so here's without it. And then with it, you can hear it just helps to bring a little bit more dimension to the sound. And again, the name of the game with this sound is bringing it to life. Like, we have the bandpass filter being modulated by the LFO, that gives it life. We have the auto pan kind of giving it a bit of a more glitchy and kind of like choppy texture. And then this chorus just takes it from sounding like a very flat and dry kind of noise to something a bit wider. And yeah, that is how I made that little noise pad sound, whatever you want to call it. Next thing we have here is the main ARP, which sounds like this. And so basically what's happening here is this is playing this sort of like ARP thing, and then it's doing a polyrhythm. So what I mean by this is, you can see we have this little pattern, this little sequence, if you will. And then you can see what's happening is that same sequence is just being played over and over again, but it's sort of restarting irregularly. So if you listen to everything else in this track, you can hear it's happening over a very clear kind of like one bar sort of pattern. Like, we have this little ARP down here, for example. Keeps restarting on every bar, basically. We have this one, this bass, which is changing every 2 bars. And then on top of those, we have this ARP, which is like constantly restarting at different times. And so this is a polyrhythm. It's basically poly meaning multiple or multi, and then rhythm being like a rhythm. It's just multiple rhythms happening at once. So yeah, and what it does is it makes this a little more interesting, because you can hear, if I take this and just put everything like perfectly on the beat here, like let's say we do something kind of like this. you can hear it's not as interesting as when it was going like this. So it's just kind of making everything a little bit more interesting that way. And then for the actual notes here, it's pretty simple. It's just kind of following this like F minor thing. These are all just notes from the F minor chord. So like we have F, G sharp, C, and then we should have F, G sharp, C up here as well. Nothing too crazy. But yeah, and then for the sound on this one, it's made using analog. So what we have is we have two saw waves, one is an octave up, and then those are going into this low pass filter. And what's happening with the filter is you can see I've got a bit of an envelope on it, and then I'm automating like all of these different things. I'm automating the frequency, the attack, the decay, and the sustain of the envelope, and you can hear and see while it's moving down here. This is really bringing the sound to life. So it's like with this thing, you know, you don't want to have it just be like a bland synth sound. You want to have it kind of come to life and be a lot more interesting. So that's what I'm doing here. So I'm just automating all these different things, and it's kind of, yeah, you can see none of them are being automated a whole lot. Like it's pretty much a straight line for all of them, but it just gives them all, or it gives everything just a little bit more character and a little bit more life. After that, I just have a bit of vibrato. You can see we just got a pretty fast rate, and that is it for inside of analog. So then after that, I have these two delays. What's going on here is we have a stereo eighth note delay. You can hear that stereo is bouncing from ear to ear. That's the ping pong delay. And then on top of that, we have a mono dotted eighth note delay. And what this adds, as you can hear, it's kind of playing off of that other one and creating like a more hectic pattern. So this is a nice technique. Delay stacking is definitely something I think that Olafur Arnalds and Nils Frahm do. It makes your delays a lot more sort of like detailed and just makes them a lot more interesting sounding. And you can hear, you can come up with really cool rhythms that you wouldn't get just using one delay. Then after that, we just have a bit of reverb just to give it a bit more space. It still needs like some reverb for that big kind of ambient feel. And then the last thing we have on here is just a bit of saturation. You can see I've just got the drive up bit, I've got the bass frequency up. Here's without it, and then with it. So it just really helps to kind of fatten the synth out. After that, we have the bass, which sounds like this. This is playing the chord progression. You can see it's just playing this thing. It's going F, C sharp, A sharp, and then back up to C sharp. Pretty simple stuff there. Just kind of like, yeah, that's the chord progression. But then for the sound on this one, it was made using analog. And what we have here is actually pretty simple. It's just a saw wave going into a low pass filter. And then you can see with the low pass, we just have a bit of an envelope on that. So that's that that you hear. And yeah, that is really it for the synth sound. It's really simple. It's not that complicated. After that, we just have that going into an amp, which you can see it's just set like this. So yeah, it's just kind of adding more texture to the sound, making it a bit more powerful and kind of like bassy. And then the last thing we have on here is just a bit of drum bus. So I'm just using this to kind of beef the sound up. Like you can hear here's without it, and then with it. It just makes it so much fatter. And when you have like a really strong bass line like this, like if you listen to this without the bass is like all of the low frequencies in this song. You know, you really need to do stuff like that to fatten it up. Like if we just have this coming out of the synth, it doesn't really work. When we add a little bit of kind of like distortion and saturation, you can hear it really brings it up. So the next thing we have here is the second arp, which sounds like this. And so it's meant to just be something a little bit sharper, a little bit more on the high end. You can hear it's kind of in the background in the track, but yeah, it's just adding a bit of like sharp, sort of like high end musical stuff. So you can hear this one is just playing this little pattern. It's just going F, and then G sharp, and then C, and then G sharp. Just like with the other arp, just kind of following the F minor chord. And you can see it's just restarting. It's just going, and then it restarts. So for the sound on this one, I made this using operator. This is like a little FM sound. So what we have here is just 2 sine waves, pretty simple stuff, just doing a bit of FM. You can see I've got the envelopes kind of set like that. I've also got the chorus pitch on the second one up an octave, so you can hear that makes it a bit brighter and more kind of sparkly sounding. And that is it for inside of operator. After that, I just have a bit of echo, just doing 16th notes, and a bit of reverb. These are both just kind of adding some space to the sound. Here's without them. And then with them, you can hear the echo just adds a bit more kind of like space, and then the reverb gives it the big reverby sound. So that is the second arp. The last sound we have here is this drone, which sounds like this. And so what this is doing is, you can see, it's just playing this little chord where it's playing F and then A sharp. It's a little bit weird, but it really contrasts with the other stuff really well, because everything else is basically just following a really simple like F minor kind of thing. And this is still an F minor, but like if we were just going to follow an F minor chord, we could do that. But you can hear now, if I show you the difference between that and then this with the A sharp in there, you can hear that. That pitch is kind of adding some nice tension, so it's just making it feel a little bit more tense and kind of mysterious. Like something I've noticed in a lot of Olafur Arnalds and Nils Fram's music in this style, where they're trying to make kind of like these synthy sort of like ambient pieces, is that it feels very mysterious and it has like a very kind of like dark vibe in that way. So this adding that little note in there really helps for that. Then for the sound on this one, it was made using operator, and what we have here is we just have 2 sine waves doing some FM, pretty simple stuff, and that is really it for inside of operator. I'll just show you, here's like just a sine wave, and then we bring that note, that sort of second oscillator there in, and you can hear it gives it kind of a more like sharp sound. After that, just got a bit of chorus. You can see I've got the amount there, the rate there. Pretty standard stuff. Just gives it a bit more dimension. Here's without it. And then with it. And then the last thing we have on here is just a bit of reverb to give it some space. And that is it for the drone. And with that, that is also it for this one. So, I hope you guys enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe. And let me know what you think of this video in the comments. You can get the project file and the samples from this video in the description, so make sure to check for that. Thank you very much, and I'll see you all tomorrow with another tutorial.